the context of Christianity that I grew up in was very conservative, which taught me that my culture was bad, that it was evil, and that it was something that I shouldn't embrace. And so it was really hard to like have that sort of pulling on me, because I personally saw the beauty in my culture. I saw the significance in my culture. It was really difficult because when I got into Native spaces, it was like I didn't know enough to be in that space in terms of like traditions and everything. Okay. So I really struggled sometimes to like fit in with that side. But then I'd go to like the Christian side and it would be the opposite, where it's like, no, that's too conservative. You know, I don't want to like give up everything of who I am as a Native person. But it was definitely something that was like pressing throughout my childhood and even into like high school and a little bit into college as well. For so long, we've been told in one way or another that our culture is bad and that we need to assimilate to American culture. A significant part of that is boarding schools.
Kill the Indian, save the man. And so the idea was anything that is Indian or Native American about this person is not worth saving. It's irredeemable. And we're just going to make them like us and bring these Western teachings to them, and we're going to make them like us. That's assimilation. And so for generations, Native people have been starved of their culture because it's been stripped from them, you know, through children going to boarding school. They're not raised with their culture, and then when they come back, how are they to continue their culture or carry that on or teach the next generation? It's very hard to do that when you have so many people lost to the boarding school system.
Both my parents, they went to boarding school when they were younger. There was a lot of like terrible things that were happening in these institutions, and yet we label them as schools. And so my parents are 61 and 58 or 59, something, you know, somewhere around there. I'm 32, gonna be 33, and only in the past 2 years, honestly, have they started to open up and tell me more. You know, my dad talked about teaching assistants that they had, and these teaching assistants would be there in the classroom, but they'd also be there in the dorms later. Wow. And one time he was talking to me about it, and he said, I don't know why they call them teaching assistants. He said, all they ever did was beat me. And that really like broke my heart, because it was like, it was such an honest statement. But it was something he had never expressed ever before. We found out about the mass graves, I believe, at the end of May.
Yeah.
So the very beginning of the summer, that's when we found out. And then just a few weeks later, Mikhail and I found out that we're pregnant and that we're going to have a baby. And I think that added to like the grief of, I mean, obviously it's a celebration. We're going to have a baby and it's exciting, but it started to make me think really deeply about like what that must have felt like to lose your child, you know, to have somebody come in from the government or from the church and steal your baby and take them away, and then to not see them for, you know, 1 or 2 years, and then maybe not see them again and not know why. And so it was really difficult over the summer when people would ask like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And I was like, I'm not in a space to like talk about this, because I was still really like processing and grieving, and trying to figure out how to reconcile all these feelings that I had.
The silver lining of, you know, discovering these mass graves, which is just awful. You think about, these are children, you know, babies that were taken oftentimes from their homes and never returned. And this was, you know, the government instituting these policies. So, but the silver lining of finding these mass graves is a lot of these communities are finding healing and closure through the discovery of these graves, where they can say, okay, we knew that, you know, our baby went missing or something like that. And now we have some sense of closure. And the first discovery that I was aware of is at Kamloops in Canada. And after that, a lot of Native communities were like, hey, we need to look at this school and this school and this school, and they started to find all these mass graves at other boarding schools as well. It's terrible to think about, you know, all of the damage that the boarding school system did and the loss of culture in Native communities. But it's really encouraging for me now to see all of the revitalization efforts and the learning that's going on. So I'm encouraged by it, and I'm, you know, hopeful for the next generation.